Do you have advice for young people, speaking of being excited about and hopeful about the future world? Do you have advice for young people today in computer science world and software engineering world and crypto world, but maybe in any world whatsoever, for life, how to pick a career or how to live life in general?
I think the thing that young people should do is not any one specific thing for any one specific young person. I think what they should do is what they won't be able to do in the later stages of their life.
Yeah.
And the way, in my opinion, from a framework point of view, to think about that is that the amount of obligations and the amount of time that a person has seems to just diminish over time, right? So the amount of free time they have, right? So you start your job, you get a bunch of responsibilities, something with your partner or spouse, more responsibilities, kids, probably even more responsibilities. And soon enough, the time that you have to educate yourself, to travel, to, experience the world, however, create whatever creative endeavor you're interested in, slowly but surely disappears. I think this is something that, young people don't fully realize. They assume that the world as it is now and the amount of free time that they have to travel, to educate themselves, to make new friends, to do all these things will somehow maybe diminish by 10%. It won't diminish by 10%. It'll diminish by 90%.
Yeah.
And the 10% that you have, you'll be resting to get back to work and get things done. So
Yeah.
what I think young people should do, and this is why it's very different for each of them, right? I can't tell young people, hey, you should study philosophy, travel, and start your own enterprise to achieve something worthwhile in the world, right? That might be something that's good for me with my values and my kind of worldview, but for other people might be something else. I think the way that they should conceptualize it is imagine if over the next 10, 12 years, the amount of choice that you had about what you could do was cut down by 90%. What would you, and this is, copying from this kind of Jeff Bezos regret minimization framework. Mm-hmm. In that framework, it's like, what would I regret not doing at 80? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of meant to create this long-term view and make these decisions now that'll get you to a long-term future that you can look back on and be proud of your life, right? What I think young people should do is they should say to themselves, look, if I never get the chance to travel for as long as I live, assuming that after 25, after 27, after 29, that's the case, how will I feel about that? If I never get to start a company after 25, after I get married, after I have kids, how will I feel about that? And whatever they feel the worst about is what they should do. Whatever they feel like when they say to themselves, if I don't travel now, I will never travel. And they feel horrible about that. They just have an overwhelming fear and disgust at themselves in that type of state at 25, 27, 29. That's what they should do. And they shouldn't listen to anybody else. Let me put it to you this way. If you're really smart, you're going to make it anyway. There's a lot of people putting a lot of pressure on you because they're afraid whether you're going to make it. If you're really smart, you're going to make it anyway. If you're not really smart, you're screwed anyway. So
either way, just relax with it and use your time well to do the things you would most regret not doing. That's really fascinating.
I wouldn't say relax. I would say very much cherish the free time, the discretionary time that you have from the age of 18 to maybe 25.
Yeah.
Because at 25, everyone's going to start looking at each other and asking, what have I achieved? Like, my friends have achieved, I haven't achieved. And then by the time you get to 30, you're going to look at each other again and go, well, my friends have a family or a company or a PhD or a whatever. What do I have? And the pressure will just increase. And it'll increase so much that even if you want to go and do the fun thing, it will not be fun. Because the pressure of comparing yourself to your friends at 25 or your peers at 30 will be so great that it will no longer be normal for you to be in a hostel at 30, kind of like living it up, right? And this is why I also can't tell you specifically what it is. For me, it was getting an education in philosophy that was rigorous and in depth. It was traveling, and it was starting an enterprise that I thought that was worthwhile, that I directed, that I could make into something great. That's what it was for me. For other people, it might be something with a band. It might be something with painting. It might be an education. You by the way, should not assume that your ability to get an education will improve. Mm-hmm. All of those responsibilities will take away your ability to get an education. Mm-hmm. So if you value having an education, if you value being a deeply educated, well-rounded person with a wide array of knowledge on a wide array of topics, capitalism will force you to specialize. That's what it's good at. It's going to take you, it's going to fashion you into a very specific tool for most people, into a very specific set of tasks. If you want to have an education in something, get it now. If you want to travel somewhere, travel there now. If you want to, do some kind of creative endeavor that you doubt whether you'll have time for in the future, do it now. You won't have time for it in the future. You won't have time to read philosophy books all day, unfortunately. You won't have time to fly to, Italy and kind of hang out with people. If you're serious about your life, you're going to get more responsibilities. You're going to get more stuff to do. And so my advice to you is do not piss away this rare, unique, discretionary time. And if your friends are, get new friends. Get smarter friends. Get people who are using the limited time they have better.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
So it's just to quickly comment, it's brilliant, to reframe high school and undergraduate college education. Sometimes people want to quickly get it over with, but one thing I remember thinking, and it's very true about high school, is one of the only times in your life you'll get a chance to truly get a broad education. You don't often think of it that way, but it's a chance to really enjoy learning things that are outside of the specialty that you'll eventually end up with. And that's how college education is. And on a more fun side, I played music, I did martial arts, and we offline mentioned played video games. I find it fascinating and brilliant what you said, which is the world will not give you a chance to truly enjoy many of these things and truly get value from many of those things once you get older. I find it exceptionally difficult to enjoy video games now.
There's so much stuff to do. There's so much responsibility.
And at the time when I played Elder Scrolls and Baldur's Gate and Diablo 2, and at the time I thought maybe that was a waste of time. But now looking back, I realize, because I always thought, let me get the career first and then I'll have a chance to play video games. That's the way I was thinking. It was a waste of time because I should really progress on the career and then I'll have time to play video games. No, the reality is that was really fulfilling. Those are some of the happiest travel experiences of my life, is me traveling to those virtual worlds and spending time in them. And it was really fulfilling, and they stay with me for the rest of my life. And I get to experience echoes of that when I play video games these days for an hour here, an hour there, like 1 hour a month or something like that. But even those experiences, as silly as they are, that seem like a waste of time at the time, enjoying them fully, unapologetically, and in a framework exactly as you said, would I regret being the kind of person who've never played those video games? And I can, for myself, honestly say that yes. Look, when I'm on my deathbed, I'm glad I
Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, I built Baldur's Gate 2 and all those Arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind, and all the Elder Scrolls games, and the things that don't necessarily fit into this kind of storyline of what a career is supposed to be, travel and all those experiences that you mentioned.
I think I just like to say one final quick thing on this. I think this extends to really hard things as well. It extends to the things you want to do. But one of the best pieces of advice one of my mentors gave me early on in my career around this time is that it will actually become harder to start a company as you get older.
Yes.
Once again, because you have more responsibilities. You're responsible to your partner for some kind of income to create a life together. Once you have kids, you're responsible for an even greater income to create a life for kids. And startups do not generate income, right? They take many, many years before anything happens. People are getting evicted. People are eating ramen noodles. That is a thing. That happens. That will happen. So I'm not saying that you should do the fun things or the enjoyable things. I'm saying the things that you would regret not doing, that you can uniquely do in the time span from 18 to 25. One of which is, if you plan to have a family and start a family when you're 25, you should start a company now. You should not wait until a bunch of people depend on you for income to eat to start a company. The amount of pressure that will be on you at that point will be monumental. You should start a company when nobody depends on you and you can sleep on the floor eating ramen noodles and still have a great time and show up with a lot of enthusiasm and be excited. So I just mean whatever you want to really devote yourself to and really do, don't put it off. Don't go to consulting or banking or any other industry and say, I'm going to do this for 3 years and I'll get experience. The only way you get experience is by doing something. You go, you do it, you fail, you do it again and again and again and again and again, and then you have experience, and then you can do it right. That's the only way experience happens. There is no other way short of mentorship. If you're lucky to get mentorship, 99% of people don't get mentorship.
And even though we're talking about young people, I feel like you're speaking to me as somebody who spent the last 2 weeks sleeping on the floor because there's no mattress, and somebody who's single and somebody who's thinking about doing a startup. I felt like you were speaking to me as a fellow young person. Let me ask you about this whole life of ours, to zoom out on the big philosophical question, the ridiculous question. What do you think is the meaning of it all? Do you think about this kind of stuff as you're creating all the technology, as you're thinking about this future? Do you ever zoom out and think like, why? Why are you, Sergey, striving? Why are we, the human species, striving for the stars?
So I think it comes down to, whether people want to live in society. So if people decide to be part of society, they have a certain set of conditions that they decide to take part in, right? So I think what this comes down to is a lot of really involved conversations. But if we assume people have free will and choice, if we just kind of make that blanket assumption, then the question starts to become, well, what choices do we make and how do we live with those choices? And I think probably the most fundamental choice is whether we exist in a society or we choose to leave society. And there are people that do this. There are people that go live in the woods. There are people that immigrate to other societies and they make a choice, right? And as they enter those other societies or they choose to leave society and go live in the woods, they adopt a certain set of values, right? They adopt values that the society prescribes. They compromise their own values. They define their own values, and they create a set of values for themselves, right? I think at the end of the day, if you're going to choose to live in society, in addition to all the minimums of, not throwing garbage on the floor and, doing nice things for people that need help and doing any number of things to just be a normal human being within society, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing as part of society, right? You can always say, hey, I'm going to leave society. I'm going to live in the woods. I did that, right? I went and I lived in the woods and I gave it a shot, realized a ton of stuff, huge amount of clarity from that. But when you decide to live in society, you take on, first of all, certain minimal agreements. You mold your values a little bit to that society. That's another choice that people inherently make. And then there's a question of, well, what am I doing here, right? What am I doing in society, right? So when people say the meaning of life, I don't know what the meaning of life is.
What's the meaning of life in society?
Right. What's the meaning of life for the choice that you've made within society, right? Because that's maybe the first fundamental choice you made. You made a choice and you continue to make a choice to be part of society and a specific society, right? So you've made this choice, you're part of a society, and now you kind of have a life and you have people around you. And then the question is, in my opinion, the question is, what is the body of work that you want to make? Right? I think personally that life is kind of so short, and the ability to get enough resources for yourself in at least the developed markets where we're lucky to be in is so relatively abundant that you and me have the luxury, by your pursuit of a PhD, you've had this luxury, I've had this luxury through the work that I've been doing to pursue something that makes society better. So this is kind of the question, I would say. The question is, am I going to live in society? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Most people choose yes. I understand why to a degree. I understand why some people choose no. And then what is and I'm going to be in society. If you choose to be in society, you're just choosing to abide by the rules. You're choosing to just do the minimum, right? That's what being part of society means. People that choose to be part of society but don't want to do it, it's very confusing. They should just leave. They should just go, look, I don't like this deal. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to live in Tibet. I'm going to live in the woods. I'm going to live where the rules are to my liking, right? You've chosen to be in society. Next question, kind of final question, is what is the body of work that I'm going to be involved in? Because in looking at that Jeff Bezos kind of regret minimization framework thing, I think that's what a lot of it really comes down to, is you kind of, the framework is at 80 years old, you look back over your life, what would you regret not doing? What would you regret not pursuing? I think there are a number of things on a personal level each person has, but I think, at least for me, and probably for many of the other people I know, there's a question of what is the body of work that I was involved in? What did I do? What happened? Right? What was I involved in? And in my opinion, you should have a good answer to that.
And you mentioned the body of work in relation to whether it helped make a better world. And the fundamental question there is, what does better mean? So it's our striving to understand what is better. What kind of world would we love to exist after we're gone? And I think that's another thing, almost unanswerable question, but it's one we can strive towards, is what is a better world?
Right. I think that's once again a very personal question. I'm not sure if there's an objective moral truth that's going to suddenly give us all an answer. I think it's actually quite fascinating to me when people feel they have this objective moral truth. They're so sure in their opinions. This is what we do. We should go, hurt them or help them or kill them or rescue them or whatever. Right? There's all these kind of very situational specific kind of like, this is the right thing to do. The objective moral truth told me that this is it.
But maybe there's a definitive truth that we can arrive towards sort of a consensus of what that is within the little local pocket of society that you're in.
Yeah,
that's the point.
That's what happens. People just then mislabel it and they go like objective moral truth.
Yeah.
This is not our idea.
Yeah.
This is coming up from on high here.
Yeah.
This is the objective moral truth that, I think exists in some metaphysical form somewhere.
And then you build a building with marble and it's big, and usually what happens. And then you convince yourself that building represents.
I think those people actually, the people who build those buildings probably understand that there is no metaphysical object. They're just like, we're all just coming to consensus. I'm going to build the biggest building, and you'll like me, and that's what we're going to do, right? Like they just look at it that way, probably. I think what ends up happening with all these values is, people should determine that for themselves. I agree that there's a second order question here of what is the best body of work to work on. Personally, I think that's probably a mix of what could you realistically achieve? Is that going to have an impact on society that you feel good about?
Yeah.
Right. So these are probably the two aspects of this question. And is this going to have a good impact on society that you feel good about? Obviously very subjective, right? Some people save animals, some people save forests. We and I are creating this system of economic fairness and transparency. I feel that I'm in a good position to enable that. I feel that I have a good chance of succeeding at that. And I think that the impact will be quite meaningful for a large number of people. And so I'm completely happy to look back once I'm 80 and see a body of work that achieved that and be very proud of that, right? Because I think that's what I'll be doing when I'm looking back. So,
well, I agree with you. The scale of impact as a smart hybrid smart contracts, this whole idea that you're working on has the potential to transform the world for the better at a scale that that I can't even imagine. So, speaking of which, means even more that you would waste so many hours of that exciting life with me. Thank you so much for talking today, Sergey. This is a really fascinating conversation, a really fascinating space, and I can't wait to learn more. So thank you so much for talking today.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.